Hello, my name is Reverend Dr. May Elise Cannon. Today is Tuesday, April 16th. Today is the 193rd day since October 7th. I woke up this morning and I got an email from someone actually I respect, but that I just met. And it was paragraphs and paragraphs of a scathing critique about how my work and the work of the organization I lead is totally ineffective and not focused and pointless and all kinds of other words. It was articulate but scathing. And I share that because I don't want you to be discouraged by our efforts. We have a critical role to play, and the United States is culpable, and American Christians contribute to that culpability. And so, as I think about the letter that we did during Holy Week with the 140 bishops and executive leaders, and now we're collecting individual signatures, and the letters and the advocacy that we're doing with the White House and on Capitol Hill, we have to continue to raise our voices and talk about what's happening in Gaza in our churches and build bridges across divisions in multi-faith contexts and have hard conversations that we've not been willing to have between Jewish groups and Christian groups that have been meeting for years and years and years. A pastor I was with this past week or so said to me, I've been meeting with my Jewish counterparts for more than a decade. And he said, I think that he leads a mainline denominational church. And he said, I think we have not done our Jewish neighbors any service because we haven't been honest with them about what we think about the Palestinian situation and occupation. And it's time that we be really honest about what's happening and that we define reality and that we call for an end to injustice and that we call for an end to ethnic cleansing and an end to U.S. complicity and participation in bombing and destruction of Palestinian people in Gaza. And that we call for an end to the cycles of violence that have been going on for decades. So you have a critical role to play. And so that email, and then there was a subsequent email exchange, that actually doesn't discourage me. That motivates me. Our work is critically important. Your work is critically important. So write letters to the editor, call your elected officials, have your churches engage, have prayer meetings, have book studies, go and participate in protests, engage constructively and do so motivated by love. Updates in the past 24 hours. Speaking of protests, yesterday was a day of pro-Palestinian protests, blocked roads, highways, bridges across the country. So Monday, this was described in the Washington Post as snarling traffic, sparking arrests from coast to coast, where activists declared to be coordinated a day of economic protest against what they've identified as the Israel-Gaza war. The disruption appeared to span most of the country. From San Francisco, parked vehicles on the Golden Gate Bridge stopped traffic in both directions for 4 hours yesterday morning. Hundreds of demonstrators blocked a highway in Oakland, some by chaining themselves to drums of cement. California Highway Patrol representatives told the Washington Post. In New York, dozens of protesters stopped traffic on the Brooklyn Bridge and held demonstrations on Wall Street. Pro-Palestinian protests were reported in Philadelphia, Chicago, Miami, San Antonio. Demonstrators' targets ranged from the major highways such as Interstate 5 in Eugene, Oregon, to a countryside road leading to an aircraft engine manufacturer in Middletown, Connecticut. Protesters also blocked roads leading to O'Hare International Airport in Chicago and Seattle-Tacoma International Airport in Washington State, prompting travelers to walk with their suitcases across roads on foot. Also yesterday, Israel's war cabinet met to determine how they should respond. It was the second day of weighing a response to Iran's missile and drone attack that happened over the weekend. Based on conversations with Israeli officials, the U.S. are expecting a limited Israeli response to the weekend attack. According to NBC, 4 U.S. officials told NBC that a response would likely involve strikes outside of Iran, and more towards Iranian-backed proxies, but that they had not been briefed on Israel's final choice. The U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin talked to the Israeli Defense Minister Gallant and other leaders and expressed U.S. support for Israel's defense while stressing regional stability to prevent the conflict from spreading. The UN's nuclear watchdog chief expressed concern about Israel targeting Iranian nuclear facilities, adding that inspections of Iran's facilities would resume on Tuesday. China said that it believed Iran could handle the situation well and spare the region further turmoil while safeguarding sovereignty and its dignity. Iran's president, Raisi, said that his country would respond in any action against its interests. And he told Russian President Putin that after its limited strikes, Tehran is not interested in further escalation. Putin hopes that there will be restraint on both sides and prevent conflict with catastrophic consequences for the entire region. U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen is preparing new sanctions on Iran in response to its attack on Israel, according to Axios. The EU is exploring how to expand sanctions already imposed on Iran. That's according to Bloomberg. They added that the issue will be discussed at the EU foreign ministers meeting next week. German Foreign Minister Baerbock arrives in Israel on Tuesday, also addressing preventing further escalation, and UK Foreign Minister Cameron is expected to arrive in Israel on Wednesday. The condition of Amina al-Hassouni is the 7-year-old Bedouin girl who is from a village in southern Israel. She was hit in the head by a missile shrapnel during the Iran attack, and she is in serious and life-threatening condition. While all eyes have turned to potential war with Iran between Iran and Israel, Gaza and the West Bank continue to burn. These cities were attacked in the West Bank over the weekend. After the retaliation, everyone's been paying attention to Iran, and we have to not ignore what's happening in the West Bank and what's happening in Gaza. There have been reports in the last 24 hours of fresh Israeli attacks on Palestinian civilians in both Gaza and the West Bank. 59-year-old Mored al-Assar, a resident of Nusrat refugee camp in central Gaza, said, "The world overwhelmingly supports Israel, turning a blind eye to Gaza's plight. We hold no significance, and the world won't allow harm to its favored child, Israel." So I think that's a really good reminder for us to not ignore what's continuing to happen while the world's eyes turn elsewhere. Jack Hloury talked to the Israeli newspaper Haaretz and said, after the Iranian attack, it looks like the war towards Gaza has returned to the starting point. It's now back to Israel versus Hamas. But as such, more than 6 months after the battle started, there are still 133 Israeli and non-Israeli hostages praying to be set free, while Gaza remains destroyed and bleeding without any horizon or vision for the day after. In that regard, the IDF said the Israeli Air Force attacked dozens of Hamas targets in central Gaza in the last 24 hours. Hamas claimed that Israel has increased artillery fire in Beit Hanun and East Jabalah in northern Gaza in order to evacuate the remaining population. Jordan's foreign minister, Ayman Safadi, said that the international community should stop Netanyahu from stealing attention away from Gaza by escalating his confrontation with Iran. The Knesset's Finance Committee met and discussed canceling tax benefits from UNRWA about 2 months after Finance Minister Smotrich announced that he would end funding to the organization. The death toll in Gaza is 33,843 Palestinians, 76,575 wounded. In terms of the hostage and ceasefire negotiations, after Hamas sent mediators the proposal that centered around the 41-day ceasefire, a political source from Israel said that the offer includes the release of less than 20 hostages in this first phase. A response is being waited on. In Israel, protesters tried to block the passage of aid trucks from Jordan to Israel on their way into Gaza overnight. And Call Up Notice 9 movement said protesters blocked the Allenby crossing, which is now declared a closed military area, for 6 hours before security forces contained them and allowed trucks to start passing at 4 a.m. Hostilities have continued between South Lebanon and Israel. And back in the United States, House Speaker Mike Johnson told Republican lawmakers that he intends to bring forward for a vote and to split Israel funding and Ukraine emergency aid bills to the floor, intending to bring that to a vote this week. Now, Republicans are threatening to oust him as the Speaker of the House. I just got that alert on my phone less than half an hour ago. So after months of inaction, Johnson unveiled last night this outline of his plan to address the conflicts of the Ukraine and the Middle East, defying Republicans who threatened to oust him from the speakership if he moved forward with funding for Ukraine. But Johnson risks appeasing no one with this convoluted plan to placate his critics on the right, while also giving national security hawks a chance to advance billions of dollars in aid to Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan. This is from the Washington Post. Johnson plans to put forward 4 bills to the floor, decoupling aid for Israel, which faced a barrage of missiles, as you know, over the weekend. So that's big news from Capitol Hill. I wanted to close with words from His Holiness Pope Francis, who urged regional leaders to avoid further escalations and to take the side of peace. He shared a few days earlier to Muslims marking the end of Ramadan his distress at the ongoing war in the Holy Land and the violence in Syria, Lebanon, throughout the region, including Gaza, reiterating his belief that war is always a failure, a road that leads nowhere. He repeated his appeal for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. May aid be allowed to reach the Palestinian people who are suffering so greatly, and may the hostages taken in October be released. He added, let us not allow the flames of resentment to spread, fanned by the baleful winds of the arms race. Let us not allow war to spread.